everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Grüß Gott, it's Andreas. What's up, Raph? How you doing? Yo, I'm always wondering when English people ask this if they really want to know how you're doing or if it's just for making conversation. But thank
It
you. I'm
really,
fine.
I mean, there's so many levels, you know what I mean? Because it could be like, how are you doing, like functionally, like on a German level? Like, do you have constipation? Have you slept? Like, those are the just like mechanically, how's your machine? I feel like that's the way. And then a lot of people don't take it there. They're like, well, my friend just died, and my uncle, he's in the hospital. And it's like, dude, I'm just trying to bag your groceries. I don't even care about you. That's the Americanism, which is why we don't even have people working places anymore, because you had to be polite. Anyway,
Yeah, I would just say in German, actually, usually people just don't really expect an honest answer. They're just like, yeah, I'm fine. Or just like you said, people start complaining.
yeah, which is cool. I mean, because like that's the most German thing. I mean, it's not really, but stereotypically, if we had a decent German stereotype, it'd be Schadenfreude. Just like the feeling of pleasure from feeling people slipping on banana peels. That is an ingrained, so, and it's so people are like, yeah, you think your day was bad. But let me tell you about my day on the Autobahn. Like that's a pretty good way to go. I don't know. I don't mind it. Well, I have some things that you sent, and I wanted to look at this. What is Iridium?
Yeah. So basically, we can start with Iridium. So I recently just published a translation of your other, let's say, top documentary video, in this case, the short one, the Tartary Iridium Dwarfs. And we had spoken about the Iridium before, and of course, ignorant me, it's very good, and I'm translating your stuff because now I'm actually, I really have to understand it now. And also get into vibe with all the concepts. So Iridium being this one layer, and it was just funny to me that in this game, Borderlands, at least in version 3, you have this Iridium, and you also go underground and several missions or whatever you're doing.
Interesting.
Shooting your way around, and you're collecting this Iridium to increase your psychic powers. The top one is another game.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that the game? Okay, hold on. It's called
game.
Borderlands.
Borderlands 3 Iridium. Yeah.
Let's see. All right.
Yeah.
It looks awesome. Wait, this is a beautiful looking game. Is this on PS systems or just Steam?
I'm pretty sure it's new generation consoles, crossplay, and on PC. You can also show some gameplay footage. It's like, satisfying Diablo type hack and slay, but looter shooter.
Ooh.
Quite.
Oh, and it's cell shaded and everything? Or is that
one of the most
okay.
famous cell shaded games ever since they started? And it's also one of the few games, which is actually one of the reasons I like to play it, which has a proper implementation of Unreal Engine, I guess 4 in this case. Because, ever since Fortnite, I'm not sure if you know about Unreal Tournament and so on, from the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
But this was a game, but they never really cared now to make a proper new version because everyone's playing Fortnite. And they have this development version of Unreal 5 or something.
Yeah. This looks way better than Fortnite. I am super down. Okay.
And this is still version 4. But yeah, so... And in the end, you collect the Iridium to increase your psychic powers in the game.
Is this the Iridium, this purple stuff here?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So that's interesting because, and in case anyone missed what he was all jumping up and down about, Iridium, this is a real element. It's the 77th element. And it's also, wait. Look what they did to me. There's a satellite.
I wasn't even sure. I looked at it, was like, this could be a metal too. Like, I wasn't looking for Iridium 77. Who knows?
Donated from spares. Donated by construction from spares. Donated by Motorola and National Air. So, good job, Apple Computers and Motorola.
What is this doing? This satellite?
God only knows what they're. It's probably just looking pretty, but it says. Space-based communication system called Iridium, conceived, designed, and built by Motorola. The Iridium system provides wireless mobile communications. I remember this. The 66 satellite polar low.
I'm like, why does it have to be 66?
Yeah, this was a big deal, actually. I vaguely remember when this happened because they're like, wow, Motorola's 66 satellite train. This was bigger than, the Elon Musk thing at the time. And this led to the Apple... what did you call the airport? The original Apple Wi-Fi router, the Apple Airport. Let's see.
Apple yeah.
The
Back then,
vintage
when
one.
everything was so unknown, they could relabel it and make it appear as if it's their invention again.
There it is, right there. Yeah, this thing was crazy. 802.11b, I think was it, or G?
Ooh.
Was it G? So it was very, very slow. But and you could get the PCBI express cards and have Wi-Fi.
Right.
But the idea of Wi-Fi was so exciting to people.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing was, Apple was using Motorola chips at that point up until the G Max, like the Power Mac G3, G4. That's all Intel. They switched from Motorola to Intel. But when they were at Motorola, you know, you have to think what Apple was going to do with the Pepsi plan, because before Steve Jobs came back, Apple was building the Newton Apple tablet.
Oh yeah.
This
94 or something, right? Yeah.
So then there's another one called the Apple Navigator. Is that what it's called? What the heck is it called? The Apple original. Oh, there it is. There it is. I just saw it. 1987, Knowledge Navigator, the Knowledge Navigator concept. Okay. So what happened was John Scully, who right now is in the process of building a new phone company. John Scully, who was in charge of Pepsi and took over Apple, he invented the iPad in so many words. I mean, he's got all these plans, and you can actually go look at videos of it in 1987. And it's, you know, if you type in the Apple Navigator video, you can see it's, you know, you've got people in a nice house in Silicon Valley. He pulls open his iPad. He says, Apple Navigator, ask, I don't know, like look for your emails, check your calendar. It's Siri. He invented Siri. And this is the thing, Siri existed. It just, they couldn't get it to work device to device. They needed to have a Motorola cloud. So the original plan, and so iCloud, this is where iCloud comes from originally. And it was so much more advanced, the original plan for it. Like, so likely we're still waiting to see some of this stuff emerge on the Apple platform that they were working on then. But yeah, that all relied on the Apple, the Mercury, the Motorola Iridium 77 satellite communication system. And what's weird again is it's called the Iridium 77 satellite communication system of Motorola, even though there were 66 satellites. So where's that 11 go? It's pretty weird. I don't know. It's pretty weird. But yeah, that was a total tangent. We were trying to talk about iridium, and only so we could talk about iridium, right? So this is kind of funny, but there is an element, and this is really strange, and we don't know where it comes from. It could come from, there's really just one layer of it. And, you know, some scientists think it came from a meteor. Others think that it was like ejected out of volcanoes. It's a very strange substance, but it seems to be associated with, according to the Alvarez hypothesis, the Alvarez hypothesis, the idea that during the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction event, that somehow something like an asteroid or volcano led to a layer of this iridium. So in other words, the last major reset that Jurassic Park talks about, and you know, you've heard this term Cretaceous period. It actually is in terms of layers of time. We have ideas in terms of years based on our measurements, but what's more accurate is just that we know that the times happen in a row, that this is before, during, and after, because you can see layers in sediment shock. It's not really accurate to say we know how many years it was. If we say 79 million years ago.
That's a stretch, but at least we can determine that there are these layers. Right.
If we were to try these, the reason we can say 79 million years is because there's so many things we think happen in a year, you know, certain kinds of environmental things like earthquakes, and generally over 79 million years, you'd imagine this many earthquakes were to happen, right? So the problem with that is sometimes there's no earthquake for 60,000 years or something, and then all of a sudden it's just horrible. For like 2014 in Chile, there were like 18 earthquake eruptions and volcanoes, I mean to say. So the amount of eruptions that can happen instantaneously kind of calls into question the idea that this just was this gentle 80 million year cycle. You know,
it kind of reminds me of history in general, or even evolution theory, because whether I understand the concepts in detail or not, whether about, you know, history, geology, or biology, over XXX thousands of years, I can imagine anything. you know?
Right. It's not.
Totally
That's the
different
thing.
words.
It's a lot more scary when you imagine how quickly people mutated into the fly or whatever it is. You know, it was probably one generation. Either this happened to a person or this was their child. You know, this is the
I
next
mean,
generation.
let's just bring up your documentary again about the iridium and the hybridization. Supposedly, you have the shortest corn, you hybridize them, and you get the giant corn. No, if what is described there is correct, it's just one generation from dwarf to giant. See what I'm saying?
If you type iridium dwarfs on the internet, it should not be that hard to find. I mean, there's not a lot of people saying iridium dwarfs. It seems like that should just come up to the
It's
top
on your
right away.
YouTube. It's on your most popular YouTube videos.
Yeah, it's not bad. This is the one that also talks about corn at the end. I can't wait to watch the German version. Corn DNA, or is that more? Yeah, we get into fungus, bees. Yeah, the corn thing. So the corn thing to me is interesting in this because we talk a bit about the idea that genetics will become, if you breed an animal like these purebred dogs, they get smaller, and the same thing happens with corn. If they make corn into a pure inbred corn, then eventually it will shrink to the smallest corn it can possibly be. And once you get, so here you go, you can see like different kinds of corn as it's been harvested, collected, grown for thousands of years. You know, the ways that corn evolved from a grass into a giant piece of corn. And the way that they did that was that they would inbreed the corn so that it would get super small. And then they would take another inbred corn that got super small, and then they would breed those two inbred corns together. So these mutant, I mean, not like that, but like you start with inbreed A on the left, inbreed B on the right. The hybrid corn is the child of those two tiny corns. So the tiny corns, you're thinking, why would I make tiny corn? Well, you know, the inbred corn, it works together because you get these two corns and then they clean each other's DNA or something to that effect. And then they have this huge growth. And so this is a way that they, I mean, this happens to a lot of things. Dwarves. I do wonder about the foundling thing too, with the little people, because I was watching yesterday Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is about 8 years from public domain, unfortunately. So we can't like watch the movie on the channel yet, but it'll happen. But in this movie, one of the interesting things is like in Washington, there's all of these like foundling boys in the Congress building and all these little boys that are like working. Let me see if I can find like.
I'm not going to mention about it too much, but there's some rumors also about what's underneath the Congress building, you know. So.
Yeah, right. But so it's interesting that they make it pretty clear that at this point into the 30s, 1939, and probably God knows how long before that, these foundling boys were running things for the congressmen. They were doing a lot of the work, you know, bringing
like
papers
seriously?
back.
This is a serious story?
Yeah. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is a masterpiece movie about a guy who, you know, kind of shouldn't make it into the Senate, and then he does. This is another cool thing. Is like it starts the movie off by saying the similarities between any characters are entirely fictitious, starting the trend in Hollywood where you say, you know, this movie's based on a true story, so you know it's a lie, or this movie is not based on anybody and it's coincidental. In other words, it's completely true. So this movie's based, and the guy's name is the Mr. Smith's villain, his name is Mr. Taylor, but that's clearly Mr. William Randolph Hearst. It's the one guy who owns all the newspapers. It's Citizen Kane, you know. So it's an amazing movie, and he has to filibuster in front of the Congress building. And when the movie came out in 1939, right before the war, so during the war they played this movie nonstop, and I mean that literally. Like in France, there was all these bombed out areas. They'd play the movie at night, projected into the shrapnel and with loudspeakers on loop, like 36 times, you know, just over and over again as a kind of a weird war footage, which is really interesting because, you know, what they're trying to say is that William Randolph Hearst's corporatism is un-American. And the solution is the whole time he's fighting him because he wants to build a boys camp for these young boys to be able to go, right? And so it's all about like, you know, we screwed everything up. The grown-ups can't do it. Well, give it back to the children because they'll they'll save America, you know, and it's just it really has
And
this
they
very,
luckily have no memory of the past, so they'll be even easier to manipulate.
it's
What it makes
literally
me
that.
think of with the new story and old story, I just sent another link, themeworks.com. This is an interesting individual by the name of Richard Thiem. He was a pastor. No, Themeworks. It's
Shows you where mine's
with
at.
THIE. I'm sorry, I sent it in the chat. That's why I wasn't spelling it for you. Almost.
Oh.
Now,
I'm gonna just go to the thing you sent.
almost.
It's
Yes.
okay.
So, from what I understand, he was a pastor and also somehow related to, I think he was a speaker also at stuff like DEF CON or similar things. I met him at electronic, it was called ECOM, Electronic Communications Conference in 2011, where I spoke about distributed systems, you know, when everything was going to the cloud. And
Sweet Leave Bluebird. I have been to Hearst Castle, and I've been there many times. And my I don't know if he's my uncle, but like a family member works at Hearst Castle, and I've gotten to swim in one of the pools without getting arrested because they let their family member. You can bring one family member to one, you know, event a year and get to swim. So I got to swim in the Hearst Castle pool. And my family house. One of my first episodes, we talked about the Camarillo ranch house. A fun story. So my family's like historic museum house, the Camarillo Ranch House, we in the back of it have a refrigerator that when William Randolph Hearst came to the Camarillo house to visit, loved the refrigerator so much that he went and got the same refrigerator. So there's like 4 of them that exist still, and one of them is in the Camarillo house, one of them is in William Randolph Hearst house. Let me see if I can find refrigerator. It shows you a picture. It's a hand-built refrigerator. This is what it looks like. It's this huge wooden room, like the anti-sauna. And you go inside the wooden room, and then there's a gas engine, or I forget if it's electric or gas, but it spins around, and it produces like the cooling for the thing. I can find a better thing. But this is, if you type in the, let's see, Hearst refrigerator. Castle. Let's see if we can find that. The Hearst Castle refrigerator. I mean, this is kind of the idea. I think this is smaller though. He must have had because the one he has is installed, but you can see how it works and everything. So it's pretty interesting if you think about it, because these refrigerators, not a lot of people had them. You know, literally to the point that there are 4 of them today. You know, so, but yeah, William Randolph Hearst Castle. Last thing I want to say about it. Hearst Castle is that it looks like a cathedral on purpose, right? So it's built to look like a cathedral. And at one point, when people would come to visit, he's such an anal retentive guy. Also, he had like 16 bathrooms, each one next to each other. Like, so you go to the bathroom floor so that no one ever used the same bathroom. You're like super weird about stuff like that. You know, right after the flu, and his mother died of influenza, so he was like all about the concerns of health and things like that. But people said, "Oh my God, is this a church?" And then William Randolph Hearst would say, "No, but if you shout the Lord's name loud enough, I'm sure he'll hear you." You know, something to that effect. Or if you shout loud enough, I'm sure he'll hear you. So very strange guy. And all around here, because he owned like 200 miles around this area, or 500 acres or whatever it was, he had lions and tigers, and get this, bears. Oh my, like just literally he had a safari of wild animals. So if you were in the castle, you were safe, but if you went off into the property, like you could get killed, and people did. And there's a bunch of stories about that as well. Hyper rants.
He used to throw some crazy parties there. So back to what I was saying, this guy was a pastor, and then somehow had some relations to, I don't know, some security circles or something. And he wrote different books. I hope they should be listed somewhere. One of them is called Mind Games, which I then actually got and read. And the thing that it's like about all kinds of dystopian visions, you know, super, I don't know, predictive AI, all kinds of crazy stuff. It's called Mind Games. Maybe you can find it.
In the video section, or words?
It should be books, books. Mind Games, yeah, to the right. And on the right hand side, yeah. So it's like just a collection of short stories. And he himself then said, well, that's he was writing all these things, and he spoke to the different connections he had. I don't know the details, but this is kind of the generic info he gave. I guess, some kind of, 3-letter agencies or something, research departments, something along those lines. And they told him, well, what you're writing is pretty cool because you have all of this information and this knowledge and this perspective. But, you can't really do it like that because, that's like a level of disclosure that's classified, however you want to put it. So what he then said or did is he just said, okay, I'm just going to write fiction with 95% of what I'm writing being correct and 5% being fiction, just so I can actually release it and publish it. Yeah. So, yeah, I think even you may be into this. It's some quite, yeah,
19 stories of brave new worlds and alternative realities. Yeah, that sounds like exactly the right thing. Let me do a quick Kindle, $9. Is there a used? 21 for used. Forget that. It's cheaper just to buy the thing. Amazon, what are you doing to me? That's pretty cool. There's also but wait, did we go deep enough into the iridium? Like, do we know what it is yet?
Deep enough?
I just want to know about it. I just want to know. Because this is like, okay, so there's a couple reasons why when you talk about video games, it's...
I mean, video games, the obvious question, of course, I mean, in this video game, it's about increasing your psychic abilities in the game.
By the way, just a shout out to Jim Kincaid. How dare you not be on our show? We should be talking about stuff. Right now, you're like, oh, yeah, I played Horizon Zero Dawn, and I know what the heck that's about. Yeah, how dare you? Okay, I love you. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, much love from him. He says he's still too grumpy to come on the show, but we'll get there eventually.
That's because we're Bert and Ernie Muppets, bro. You got to get on here and just like have some eyebrow with us. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, in this game it increases psychic abilities. Of course, we have all these questions. I hope I'm saying this right now about, I think, one guy who's talked about potential Second World War lost advanced technology, talks about some kind of a mix between even aluminium and mercury or something. So maybe this iridium has some particular technological use. This is something we could look up now, actually. This is the only other lead I have as to why it could be particularly relevant, or maybe, in the tech world.
Tiny Tina's Wonderlands connected to Borderlands? Because iridium is in there too? Okay, so there's a lot going on here. Okay, that means there's a lot going on, because if you've looked into Tiny Tina's and like the connection to Dungeons and Dragons and Magic, they're very aware of what's going on in the
actually just got that one too, so I know about it. But yeah, it's kind of strange. It's like a Dungeons and Dragons story, so they certainly open up that world. But do you know more about it? Like whatever.
I mean, Dungeons and Dragons is a great cover for like the like Tartaria stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's obviously that's like how you call it, a lot of the rings for tabletop, so
Wizards Coast, right? What the heck am I talking
also are they also from Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons?
Isn't it? I thought that was Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons Fantasy. Yes.
This means they made everything, because they also made the Magic card game, which is another. You have all the dwarves, the trolls, the planeswalkers, the multiple realities, everything in there. So
yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting world, and I have an interview with John Paul Larson on my channel where he's actually gone to he's a gaming designer and game wizard and works on these kinds of things, and the kinds of information that they study and the amount of them that are in, like you said, like DEF CON or are in security systems or things like that, but just love gaming. I mean, there's a lot of disclosure comes out through games, and has even before video games. Pre-video game arcade I just went to in Minneapolis. I wish I could remember the name of the place. What was it called? I forget.
What kind of games would you have? Like playing cards and billiard or something, or pool, or?
Dude, so this blew my mind. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I wish I could remember. Brittany, what was the name of that place that had all the games?
The only
Can Wonderland, Minnesota. Let me see if I can find this place. So first off, you got like mini golf, obviously, but the arcade part has machines that are made by hand. I mean, so you got obviously all the pinball machines going back to the 20s, But where's the ones I want to show you specifically? They have like these machines. Where are they? Okay, like, and you've got the foosball table. This is not impressive though. The stuff that they had, they're not, you can't even see a picture of. Okay, here's an example. So this is like military grade, but it's been turned into a 60s toy, and they have tons of these where you put on this little helmet, or you look through the eyeglass, and it has a mirror, and it goes and it looks inside, and there's a physical diorama. And then there's, if you push the button, it sends a light that slowly moves up the this like strip, but it's like a torpedo. And once it gets to the edge, there's a physical boat moving back and forth along the diorama. But if it comes to the middle of the thing, then it's touching the metal strip that will then be touching the metal strip right as the electricity passes by, and then it'll light up the ship, and it'll also make an explosion sound. And so they have all of these crazy physical arcade. And I was like, wait a second, this stuff existed? You mean before the video game world you had? And there's another one, which is just a wheel of paper that's like a roll of painting, and you're on a little toy car, and the roll spins like a cassette tape while the car is on the road. So it looks like you're driving along a road. I don't know if I could find that one, but
Isn't there even, maybe even you spoke about this, that also in all modern games, starting from Doom, that this was also had some strange connections to the military or something along those lines? Or am
absolutely.
I wrong? Or some PSYOP connections? So
absolutely. So, I mean, for instance, here is the learn to fly a helicopter trainer before
Wow.
Vietnam War. And the way this works is you get an RC helicopter and it's attached to a stick, and you can fly it around in circles, and you can lift it up and down. And they have all kinds of weird ones. Like there's a ping pong ball over a vacuum that's pushing air up, and you can fly it around like Quidditch through these nets and holes. It's incredible. All these old vintage games. There was another one that was, can you fly the American rocket around the Earth model before the Sputnik flies around? And just like all of it was military based. Robots. Check out the robot. Look at that robot. Look at his his cup too. I don't know. So it's just really interesting because it was like very 50s and very like pro America, but it was also an amazing technology. All this crazy technology that we're thinking it's impossible. We're like, oh, you have to make a video game. No, I mean, look at the automatons of Japan in the 13th century, right? And the kinds of crazy stuff the Arabs had. I mean, we're just now starting to talk about this idea of automaton, but the ancient Greeks and the ancient Shinto world, they talked about automatons as like a tree is kind of a human. This idea that life happens, processes go by, the weather is automatic, that these things could be, we could build, that the technology wouldn't be outside of nature. We just continue to do what nature does. We make automatons.
Indeed. So we don't know what iridium is used for yet. Let's look that up, no?
Yeah. Well, I mean, iridium is used in, so it is used in technology. It is used in...
Because I'm thinking that maybe can give a hint
X-ray.
as to occult properties too.
It's used in X-ray crystallography, right? That's it's most expensive use. X-ray crystallography. So if you want to do some drawing of a square and hexagonal figure, all right, that's ancient. As shown by X-ray crystallography, the hexagonal symmetry of snowflakes results from the tetrahedral arrangement of hydrogen bonds. So they're able to record it by using a iridium vapor. Mm-hmm. That crazy. So let's see, other uses: scattering, X-ray, mineral and metallurgical.
Maybe for good reason sounds very similar to irradiate. So maybe that's the other connection. I don't know.
Yeah. There's also vanadium and iridium are used together for X-ray diffraction. Somebody who loved iridium, John Trump, right?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, he was all about it because he did X-ray work. Yeah, I don't get to type the word iridium next to his name. But if you see the video,
here, I'm just sorry. I just have to say this. Sorry for taking so long again to notice. No. But it's called. What is the proper term for it? It's not called X-ray, but everybody calls it X-ray. just like with Christmas, everyone says Xmas. It makes me think again of, the whole dog journalist, X share, X protect, X marks the spot, X, there's something occult going on, X,
X for
So
Xirtus.
that's,
Right, yeah.
of course, but like X-ray, that's not a proper term. I'm pretty
I mean,
sure.
what? Well, I'm curious, actually, isn't it? Because I've always heard it as X-ray. I never really bothered to think about it. Let's see, X-ray, or much less
radiation.
X radiation, is a penetrating form of high energy electromagnetic radiation. Most X-rays have a wavelength ranging from 10 picometers to 10 nanometers, corresponding to frequencies in the range of 30 petahertz to 30 exahertz. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure that they okay. Here's why you're saying that. I get it, because you're German enough to be like, hey, bro, it's Röntgen radiation. And you're right. We should be saying, bro, I just got Röntgened the other day. I got Röntgened.
Exactly, yeah.
And it was just like, oh, they made me wear all this lead. It was super German. Yeah, I don't know. I hear your point. X, though, I have a bias. I like the letter.
No, it's fine. I love it too. I'm just saying, if they use it for something, like I said, just with Christmas and so on, there must be a reason. Like, it's not. Don't think
there's just not enough good stuff with the letter X. I mean, we tend to not use, X is for garden in Spanish, right? Jardín. So we don't use X enough in English. You get xylophone, and if you take away X-ray, you know what I mean? We're going to be running out of stuff. So
we only have Xirtus, but that's enough. That's plenty.
Catty, but fair. So pre-Röntgen observations before 1895. Wow. X-rays were just a type of unidentified radiation emanating from experimental discharge tubes. But after 1869, many of the early Crookes tubes invented around 1875 undoubtedly radiated X-rays because early researchers noticed effects that were attributed to them. So particles reacting to smaller waves, because we're used to such huge waves that things just pass through it or bend around it. And this is something that actually we're getting a impact and indentation print from. But yeah, so why is that interesting? I mean, why are we so interested in X-rays? Well, okay, we were looking into iridium, and if the question is, what is iridium? This chemical element, which according to, again, the Alvarez hypothesis, might have been associated with the dinosaurs dying out or whatever. Dragons is the way I like to look at it. You get the point. Scientists accept this in mainstream society that iridium destroyed the world, that the reset, that Jurassic Park, this is all iridium's fault. And now what do we do with it? Well, we use it for X-ray radiation. So what does that mean, right? Doesn't that kind of sound like a nuclear bomb kind of scenario? Like that's a radioactive.
How healthy is it really to get X-rayed?
Radioactive apocalypse wasn't good for the dragons. I'll tell you what, man. Tell you what. By the way, these dudes, Luis and Alvarez, totally familial, right? It's like a father and a son, right? So pretty great. Scientists working together. All right.
And you had also mentioned this. I just want to bring it up because it's in the documentary. And you even mentioned it on the show yesterday or last show in Think Tank, the whole Peter Fleming, Ian Fleming thing. And like, how suspicious is that the one guy writes some strange books about history and Tartary and the other guy writes James Bond? I mean,
they look pretty weird.
Give me a break.
It's a pretty solid face right there. 1907 to 71.
And of course he's got royal sanction. So I mean, what else do you need to know?
Yeah, he was one of the four sons of the barrister and member of Parliament Valentine Fleming, right? Who was killed in action in 1917. But the barrister, so you got to imagine being a barrister is like you're generationally in charge of making decisions. Like, you know what, your family, we're gonna have you guys sort stuff out for people. So that's where the Flemings came from. And let's see, Church of Christ, Eton, prime of went to Brazil, and then he basically was a worldwide spy. He was an espionage actor in South America and then in Asia, and he traveled to Moscow, from Moscow to Peking via the Caucasus. And so that's when he started writing a lot of his book about the news from Tartary, which was pretty interesting because he's telling everyone right there, look, well, you guys have heard about this place. Here it really is. Here's what it's like with the Russians and the Germans and the Muslims, and they're all part of this group. And this is right before World War II, which you saw probably David Ewing Jr.'s talk on. It gets very interesting when you start to wonder about these places that weren't calling themselves Germany or Ukraine, or like what were they calling themselves? And why is it that, you know, Tatarstan state was one of the first states to leave the Soviet Union, and then you got the whole history starts to bend outwards from there. I mean, we did look a little bit at the CIA paperwork. We should go into that even deeper. But this is where the Soviet Union starts to break up. It's all because they can point to Tatarstan and say, hey, guys, you know, we could probably reboot this. We can get people, we can rebrand this. We can get people excited about the idea of nationalism again. And the irony being, Tatarstan is now a state, but there were tons of people all over Europe that would have considered, I mean, clearly Turkey, you know, considered themselves pseudo-Turkology. Pseudo-Turkology? Wiki. There we go. Talk, pseudo-Turkology. This is, you know, honestly, how does Wikipedia have a thing that sounds so freaking racist? But it's a scientific term, you know, and it has to do with this idea of, you know, really what the Turks call Tartarism, right? So Tartarology, but we call it pseudo-Turkology. Although this is now Turkology. There you go. Make it some serious stuff. Pretty cray. The thing you remember when Ewan was connecting Japan to Turkey, and it was interesting because some of the names of the Japanese places, and you can, you know, this is Turkey Japan relations. You can see the idea even.
I mean, isn't there even, maybe you also covered this, like the old Japanese art? This can also lead us, is a great segue to the Awa Odori too. But isn't there also some kind of older Japanese art depictions where they look much more Tartarian, let's say, or Turkish, or for lack of a better term, than the more modern type of Japanese art that was maybe only introduced, I guess, after the Meiji Restoration or something?
I don't think it's too messed up like of a stretch to point out the correlations between things like, you know, ukiyo-e and okusai style painting and like Mani and like Arabic Persian paintings, you know, because if you look at the Persian paintings, you can go to like old, you know, ancient or something. You can see in the style, you know, like the kinds of eyes, the way the negative space. Let me see if I can like some of this stuff, like this compared to a hokusai. Hokusai, did you right? Come on, no, give me like a portrait or something.
But isn't this also funny? Like the most popular images of those is basically like the Great Flood, or what is this? You know, like,
oh, interesting. Yeah. It's like, hey, sucks to be an island.
no one ever thinks about it, but why is it a giant wave? Like, why?
Yeah, and it's like a bunch of boats in the waves too that are like, this isn't going to be good for us. And there's like water in the boats, and the dudes are like, yeah, we're going to probably drown. I don't know. Pretty hardcore. I do love that wave though. Also, Wave of the Future from Weird Science. Can I find this picture? If you ever watch Weird Science, there's a poster on his wall, and I have this somewhere, and it's one of the greatest pictures ever. Gosh, why won't it load? But you see it right there. Open image in new tab. The Wave of the Future. This is like, I don't know. I just love that picture. It says a lot about what's going on in our society. Anyway, the Arabs and the Japanese, you can see it in the earlier art. It starts to work its way out by the 16th century. By the Edo period, you know what I mean? You start to see, and then it starts to go away a little bit by, like, you know, the end of the 16th, but the 17th century, 1600, it's pretty Confucian. It has more of a Southern Chinese flair to it because the Chinese have actually impacted Japan. Don't let them tell you different. Confucius is still pretty popular there, and Hanji is based on kanji, and it is what it is. You know, I mean, there's definitely cultural correlations, but that matters because, as we've talked about before, the Ainu in Japan were not really Chinese looking at all. You know, I mean, and now they are. Look at this too. What is this? What is the facial tattoo scarification thing that they were doing? And I mean, I'm gonna compare it to the Joker, but only anthropologically. I'm not trying to say like it's silly. I'm just saying, why do we do? What is the deal with clowns and tartars and joke and jesters? Because clearly, the idea of colorful, bright pattern clothing, and
Yeah.
characters that were allowed to have free speech and talk to the king, who were diplomatic and everything. These characters, this is how different is this outfit from the Swiss
I'm
Guard?
sorry. I mean, because it's always thought about symbolically, of course, in the tarot. But I mean, in the tarot, the Fool literally is the beginning. I mean, there's all these occult connotations, but the tarot is the wild card and is the source card. It's the primordial anything and everything.
And what's the power of the Joker in blackjack or poker or any of these games? They don't get to play, you know?
Oh, really? I didn't even know that. How do you mean they don't get to play?
In a lot of the game, like in bridge, right? You don't use the Joker card. In a lot of games,
oh, right, of course, you have to remove it. Yeah, exactly.
You have to remove the.
Yes. So
why would you give me a card I have to remove? I've been upset about that since I was 5. You know.
Yeah, so it would just point also with the Ainu towards it. This could be like the remnant archetype, without again the occult connotations and the whole metaphysical thing. Just if we see it on a short-term view, what is the first thing we can remember that is the source of everything here? It's the Fool, or potentially, the colorful Tartar.
Oh wait, is this the Swiss Guard, or is this the Swiss Guard, or is this the Swiss Guard, or is that? Does anyone get where I'm going with this? The Livonian Confederacy, Livonian Confederacy.
Oh, someone says Ainu language is really similar to Basque language, which I have no idea about, but maybe.
Oh yeah. This is fun. Okay, so Basque, Japanese grammar. Okay, so the Ainu language completely destroyed. I mean, there's some records of what we know about it, but basically Basque grammar is identical to Ainu grammar, and Japanese grammar is influenced by Ainu grammar, but Japanese is controlled by so Japanese language has like 3 different islands and some Chinese and arguably Arabic influencing, right? So we've found some examples of that along the way. Yoshima and then Ushuaia and Isoi. There's a lot of these things that are connected to the Arabic. But the grammar itself is very interesting, and that connects back to the idea of Basque, Etruscan. So we are using algorithm. There we go. I don't know if they're going to say it here on the Kiora. It doesn't appear to be, in my opinion. No, but Basque is related to Etruscan. What do you mean? No, it isn't. There's some speculation about Taresian language family that would be included in Etruscan. There you go. Okay. Tarsenian, whatever, Tarsenian language included in Etruscan. Here's the thing, though, with the people saying that they're so certain about this, they clearly don't. They don't know because they don't speak Etruscan. But Etruscans become clearer understood with algorithms. Now we're able to look at it, and everything along the way. This is, Ewing is pointed this out. Arab, Europe. Oh, like if you look at Latin is the best way to look at this. Europa. I mean, just as Araba, Asia becomes Europa, Europa becomes Araba.
And I think this was from the talk from yesterday from James W. Lee, whom you may also want to interview with KGUP, and he just pointed out, which I also always wondered about, as a so cultured European, you're in America and you notice why are all these cities and so on and towns called the same? I mean, even in Europe you have some repetition, but then you have Venice Beach, Rome, whatever, everything in America, although these are original, or we would say now originally European place names, but everything is copied. So it really seems like it's been pasted over of whatever it was called before. And I'm sure these maps of the old tribal maps for America before the colonization, and you have all these tribes everywhere and the cities everywhere. So for the renaming, they just said, okay, let's just look at Europe, and we just copy paste it over, just like with the history, we just copy paste. It's pretty simple and effective technique, apparently.
Well, it's just funny because you have this idea of state versus nation, right? So Kaifeng Jews, for instance, are Jews that live in China, and they've intermingled with Chinese. A lot of them look Chinese, but they're from a Jewish diaspora, and so they're all over the world, and they'll interact often with Jews in the West as well. Not not exclusively or anything, but you might have deals, trade, you know, you might have family in Germany, you know, family in China. So you've got this kind of system going where you might have a family that's in two places so that they can work with each other over winters, right? In a winter time, they're selling stuff from the summer or the other side. And this gets really confusing because you're like, wait, what kind of people live in this place? It's like, well, yeah, like 16 different groups of people, you know what I mean? Because it's a forum. They moved to this city that didn't exist before in order that they could all interact with each other. It wasn't going to make sense to just have a city with one kind of people because they can only do so much themselves. And that's great. I mean, and you look at any time that that's happened, there, you know, like there's always less growth and there's missing problems, right? It becomes a North Korea. So they had to work together.
Yeah, so maybe this is a good segue, especially if you don't know it. The second link on the first thing I sent in chat, the YouTube video, is the Awa Odori. Just so we have some, you know, get some culture in here too. I mean, culture. Who knows?
Where did I put this? Hold on a second. I had it open a second ago. Here it is.
I'll send it again.
No. Don't you do. I got this.
Okay.
This guy, right?
Yes. So these guys. So they're pretty. I think it's pretty awesome. The funny thing for me was, so imagine I was 17. I'm in Japan, and I was actually in Shikoku, where they which is the main island or whatever, where they do this, and they also perform it every day in a theater. So I saw it there, and just because I'm thinking of it now, that's also where for the first time I would say I was very consciously introduced to the idea of QR codes in 2007, because they had this exposition somewhere at some gaming center or somewhere, like one day I was running around.
We've been pushing QR codes like the Book of Mormon. I feel like a Jehovah's Witness every day with my QR codes. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, but you know, for the Quran codes, it's important. And there it was fun because they had this card game for the PS3, which was then brand new, and you could lay those cards on the table. It had a webcam, and then it recognized the QR code of the card and would show you a 3D image of the game on the PS3. So you had like an augmented reality type thing, which worked through QR recognition of the cards by the webcam. But anyhow, so going back to this dance, the interesting thing here is, according to Wikipedia or whatever, yeah, he's the master, like the leader of them. Let's say. This was still done during the Tokugawa shogunate, so this may be something carried over from at least the last reset, or at least from the, you know, forced reopening of Japan. And this is kind of my other question to you. Even if there is just something true with the official history, how could it be that they isolate, or what would be the reason why they would isolate themselves for 250 years? Even before I knew about all this alternative historical perspective, I was always wondering, like, how could they do that? Why would they do it? And then, of course, it's highly suspicious that the Portuguese and then the British blockade them into opening up again.
Some days, some nights, some live, some die. It's the way of the samurai. Did you ever watch Samurai Champloo?
This one I didn't watch, actually. No.
Oh well, there's your answer. Yeah. So this one is done by the guys who did, you know, Space Dandy and Cowboy Bebop. And so, but it's like Edo period. And there's this dude who just loves dumplings. He loves his dumplings. And he's got a friend who's so he's kind of a gangster, and the other guy is a samurai. You know how it is. And samurai, they think they're cool. They're very British and, you know, pretty and regal, whatever. Okay, where's the girl, though? Where's that girl? They meet the girl. Where's the girl? Doesn't matter. They meet a girl. There she is. See that girl? You saw her for a second. She's a redhead girl. And there's like, what are redhead girls doing in Japan? This girl here. And she's like, all I remember are the sunflowers. So she's a white girl from the Dutch. And throughout the show, they see all kinds of stuff like hidden Christians living in caves and Dutch dudes that are hiding out. It's like, no, I am Japanese. I am a samurai. But it's this like 7 foot tall dude who sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And they're like, dude, he's like winning all the food eating contests and everything. So this show talks a lot about what was going on. And also, if you've seen the Silence, Endo, Scorsese, this movie and book, all about the period. And so kind of covered this before, but just in case you forget, the Silence is about the period where half of Japan were Christian, half of Japan were Catholic at this point before the Silence.
What year?
14 to 16 something. So let's look
They're
at this.
supposed to have been Catholic at that point. What?
Heck yeah, they was. I'm gonna say it like that. So here's the movie, and they were gonna do it with, you know, the guy from Gangs of New York, Lewis, right? Whatever his name is, Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis was going to be in this movie, and he had to back out, and so they ended up with Liam Neeson, and that's still good. It's still a good movie, but the point is, the book made me cry and wake up with night terrors in my like late teens, early 20s. It was that I had to go see a priest. I was freaking out. I was like,
I felt that when I translated your documentary. That's the one like cracking up, and I was like, oh, like, what happened there?
Yeah, I was freaked out because the thing was, I was talking to these Japanese guys, and I saw an interview. This lady had gone to Japan and did some documentary work trying to go to Okinawa and look into the Japanese Christians, because the thing is, they're still there. All right, so I'll try to tell the story more clearly. Basically, these two priests show up after this priest was there, because this priest, he ends up spitting on a cross and refusing God. And they're like, dude, no. He like taught us everything. He couldn't do that. He loves God. God loves him. How could he possibly? And then they get to Japan and they see like anybody who's a Christian gets crucified by the Japanese, like in the gnarliest way. They'll throw wet splattered oil on them while they're being crucified out at sea, right?
Okay, but
and
then, assuming this is correct, just trick question. How would they get the idea that they would have to react to someone supposedly Christian in that fashion?
Well, because this is the plot twist. They're all Jesuits. Duh.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, good. Okay, I'm with you. All right. Okay.
So yeah, no. So all these dudes that are going to Japan, that are trying to like take over. They took over Macau. They took over Cambodia. They took over Sri Lanka and Singapore. The Jesuits have control of the world. This is
about.
And what people don't even think about is that right as the Japanese isolation period starts, so does the Jesuit persecution, the Jesuit shutdown by the Catholic Church, by the Portuguese. Okay, so everybody and their brother is like, dude, get the Jesuits out of our country. And then the Jesuits get strongholded in Paraguay, which causes the Triple Alliance War.
Can we also check the Edo period, like even just official years, just to see if that matches?
Right, yeah. So Edo period, wiki, it's like 16 to 1867. 1603 to 1867. It's exactly the right time for this.
Basically, it could be now, again, just theorizing. This is kind of a remnant of the World Trade Federation. And
yep.
They realize this force is starting to expand. So they're like, okay, in this case, I almost want to say cancer is growing. We're gonna shut off everything.
I mean,
they're not infiltrating here as well, especially if they know, just like with the Quran, that these guys like to go around and colonize and rewrite your books and everything.
And of course, it came to the end with the Boshin War, right?
By the British in the end.
The Boshin War ended with cannonballs and with tunneling, and it was like the Siege of Vienna. I mean, like people, if you ever seen that movie with Tom Cruise, The Last Samurai or whatever, like they just shot him, and there's a bunch of westernized, because they got a bunch of their kids Freemason educated on the West, including the Emperor. And that was the end. That was the end of the Edo period as we know it. But that also led to the fascist period in Japan, where they're like, no. We got to be really careful because we let these dudes in and look what they did to us. And this is the second time. So we got to be really careful. And that's what led to the Red Sun movement in Japan. But the Triple Alliance War, of course, is where 93 to 99%, I think 99% of all men and 93% of the entire country were murdered. And they killed off everybody, because everyone in Paraguay were Jesuit. They could speak 3 languages. They could read and write. The literacy in Paraguay was the highest of any nation in the world yet today, right? It was nearly 100%, higher than Cuba, right? Which is kind of an allegedly. So
now, just to be clear, you're saying that all of Paraguay was Jesuit themselves, or had turned?
Right. So you can watch the movie The Mission. So The Mission is a movie.
You mentioned it in the documentary. I just wasn't sure about the time frame, because how long does it take for you to repopulate? I mean, let's say 50 years at least. So when did they take it over, or how? And who then, just to understand this, or what party, what force do you see would retaliate against, quote unquote, the Jesuit state in such a fashion. Who was that? Do you know?
So
Or-
the Catholic Church, along with Freemasons, you have a bunch of people that were afraid of the power of the Jesuit Church, and you also had, so first off, Jose Gaspar Rodriguez de Francia, who's he's part black, part Spanish, part indigenous. He's like, everyone in Paraguay has to marry someone from a different race. We're going to fully integrate. It was the first fully integrated state, and the Catholic Church was really afraid. They're like, these guys have a lot of power. They're building up their own state. They have all the resources of the West. We don't have those resources. They could cut us off and isolate us. And then in the meantime, the Jesuits are coming back here and buying tons of property, building schools, educating kids. So it became pretty obvious. And then there's the
factional war within the Catholic power structure, basically.
Yeah, assassination, King John, Portugal. So then it all culminates with the attempted assassination of King Jose or King John of Portugal in 1758, where the castle has fallen in on an earthquake. So he's living in a caravan outside the castle, and then they come to try to destroy the caravan. So I mean, there's so much going on at this period. We don't know all the stories yet. I'm still looking into some of the stuff about earthquake design, because the idea that the Jesuits were involved in making earthquakes is a lot less crazy than it sounds. I mean, in the sense that they're talking about it. I can point to examples of Jesuit scientists in the 16th century, 15th, 16th, 17th century, talking about how to create earthquakes, the consequences of alchemy, and why alchemy starts to be so suppressed, because the Jesuits are taking over science. And so the first thing they do is they say it's evil and satanic. And then the next thing they do is say it's crazy and silly, and it's like the devil doesn't exist kind of a thing. And that all starts to happen. But meanwhile, you look at Japan, right? And Japan has, tons of, they have ministers, they have shamans, they have they have a lot of stuff going on. So when these guys start to convert their people, and you've got half of the island, at this point, you've got, Japan's several islands with a number of different tribes, and you've got these different, I want to say kingdoms, but they're really gangs, right? During the period, you have these kind of mafiosos, and they own their own little armies, and that's what the shoguns come from, right? And even the yakuza are the leftover of this. Like the yakuza are the ones that were allowed to continue to exist. There's honor in gangsters, and you can look at mafiosos with honor, but it's kind of a plastic concept. And so they did, like, you guys think you're Catholics? Fine. So then they just murder. You want to be like Christ? It's fine. So then they crucified them a bunch. And it was that was the beginning of the shutdown of Catholic Japan, and then full-on isolation of all trade. They're like, don't bring anything in anymore. The only people being allowed to bring anything in would be the Dutch, because the Dutch were no longer part of the Spanish Empire. They were considered to be Protestant of the Catholic Church, and so they were not allowed to bring any Christian iconography in, but they still smuggled stuff in, and people had hidden Christianity. So you have the hidden Christians of Japan and their artwork, which I can find an example if I go to like Wiki or something. Akure Krishistan. Here you go. So this right here is, a hidden Christian symbol. You look at it, it looks Buddhist, but then you're like, oh, freaking cross. You know what I mean? And little things like that. And now, so that documentary that freaked me out, you've got these great grand ancestry, kids that are now in their 70s, the last of them, and they're mumbling Portuguese prayers, messing them up, but they have got as best they can remember from the way they were trained by the last guy who died, who's been secretly, and it's the Eucharist. You can kind of hear it if you know the Catholic prayer. You're like, oh yeah. And it's even in the same tone and the same rhythm. They saved as much as they could. And then they break these rice balls and sake, and they do the Eucharist. And so in so many ways, it's interesting to me that all of the things about Catholicism that I think most people would find contentious and that are kind of weird disappeared. All the things that we think maybe were added to the religion. But then what did they save? Like their families are being murdered and everything else. They're saving the thing that Christ saved before his own death and crucifixion, like eating together, performing the Eucharist ritual is like, that is the most important lesson there, is like to feed the poor, to take care of the poor, Good job, Japan.
Indeed. So Yeah, so we spoke about the dance, the Tokugawa shogunate. Yeah, also here this three leaf always reminds me of the Trinity too, where I'm still confused, about
Interesting.
who introduced what kind of Trinitarian concept, because I think like the three certainly is a fundamental number and geometry in creation, but it seems that then, and I'm not sure if this is related with the Council of Nicaea or not, but they started to have this whole split in their minds between God Father and God Son and Holy Spirit and whatever else, and this seems to be then just like an artificial, control programming, to split everyone's minds. But the concept of the three itself, I actually see very positive. But just as we saw now, this would be exactly the period, just like you said, from the foundation of the Jesuits until they were forced open again.
Right. It's pretty interesting. And then there's also the Japanese regalia, the imperial regalia of Japan. Are you familiar?
I only know the chrysanthemum, I think, but not
Okay,
those
so
things. No.
Zelda Link. I'm just gonna pull the
Oh,
picture.
of course, of
Yeah.
course. What a surprise!
So,
Yeah.
Right. So Link holds on to the imperial regalia of Japan. See, it's a shield, a sword, and a jelly bean, essentially. I just had it open. Where'd it go? Here we go. So you've got the sword, and that's a weird sword. That is not a Japanese looking sword. But this
And
is
it's even a sword. This really looks more like a rod, like a
that
lightning
is
rod or like a
that is well,
plasma,
fits with the story, right? Because the Moon Queen, right, the goddess of the moon, she came down and gave the first emperor the sword and the jelly bean, made of jade, and the moon shield, right, which is it's a moon shield. It's also kind of like an iPad. It does the Zoom calls. You can see the other beyond the veil. You can
8
use
corners or 8 spikes.
Yeah. I mean, none of this looks that Japanese. This looks Atlantean, Trojan. Name some stuff. It's from the Targaryens before it's from Japan.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, YouTube recently figured out Tartarian.
Good job, guys.
They now know it for some reason. And there's also like all kinds of BS videos, of course, debunking everything. I mean, BS, but let's say kind of condescending videos popping up. But whatever, more PR is more PR for the recent Targaryens.
Yeah.
So it's good.
I think the more we keep pushing just the anthropological side of things and like looking at the the history of Japan and the world and how they interacted with each other, the more these things start to make more sense. That there's clearly a suppressed trade empire. Even yesterday, right? I had made by Jimbo.
Just sorry, briefly. Even here it says map of Japan in the provinces in the time of. Let's not call him Jesus.
Wow.
But you've known this, no? Ieyasu, he was the Tokugawa shogun, and there is this question or idea, maybe even Sylvie brought it up, Sylvie Ivanova or someone else, that it also sounds like Jesus. Like, what is up with this? Ieyasu,
this is Jesus, bro. Tokugawa Ieyasu.
And what does it mean? And he was... Oh, this was funny, because this would mean then Jesus was defending against the Jesuits. Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
The Matsudara. Yeah, the Messiah. Yeah, I could see it, man. I could see it. I mean... And also the symbol is kind of like, it's got that Jupiterian kind of flat cross going on. Pretty cray. I mean, this is just so many things. And then the Trinity, of course. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. But okay, so the Imperial Regalia of Japan recently was moved, right? You heard about, I guess, I feel like I did this at some point. Let me see if I can find it here. Moved or discovered, something like that. News. It's supposed to be secret. A few reasons why Japan's new emperor still has to carry a sword. Basically, when the last emperor did this, they keep this stuff secret. You're not supposed to know where it was. And then the emperor was getting kind of tired or something like that. This was like 3 years ago. And so they moved the Imperial Regalia of Japan. And it was supposed to be this huge secret. But somehow somebody caught wind of like the fact that the main temple was moving something and they just assumed. And so they posted on the internet and it became common knowledge to an extent. And the emperor nearly died, coincidentally. Like he got really sick and was on his deathbed. And then he resigned essentially the throne. He transferred the throne to his son. And so now we have a new emperor of Japan. And we went through the entire thing again. He got to do the whole thing, the ceremony. And now the former emperor is fine. He's healthy. But he's...
When did this happen?
2019, right before COVID. And the new emperor took over, and I wish I had the video of it because there's this. As soon as I saw a video of a dude in Japan who was like on his phone over a bridge, and he looks at the phone and he points it at his friend, and it says like in Japanese like "new emperor" like crowned, and he just goes like "Topanaya senpai," and he jumps backflips off the bridge and lands in on the top of a platform of a boat that just starts to be coming through the other side, and he's like, ah! So like people were just super excited that this happened. But it is interesting though that the emperor has to carry the sword of the Moon Queen, and I still don't get what the jelly bean's for. Like, what is that jelly bean? See here, there's the mirror, the sword, and the jewel, right?
Okay, so these would be the trifecta of the Triforce in Zelda.
A noted Magatama, that's the name, because it's a Magatama, which is a special magical.
Here it said swords, mirrors, and jewels. Swords, mirrors, and jewels.
Magatama are curved common. That's the shield. The shield's the mirror. Magatama are curved comma-shaped beads that appear in prehistoric Japan. From the final Hamon, really? Jomon? That's really from the from the Lemurian period.
And I'm sorry, like what kind of are these supposed to be eyes on top, or what is this?
Dude, that is some Star Warsian stuff right there.
Oh yeah.
Primitive stone and earthen material of the earlier period, but the end of the Kofun period were made almost exclusively of jade. In other words, China's influence all of a sudden comes in there. Magatama originally served as decorative jewelry, but by the end of the Kofun period, functionally as ceremonial and religious objects. Right? So we don't know if this part's true, originally decorative jewelry, because we know that eventually they were worshiping these things that used to belong to people in the older version of Japan, whatever was in Japan first. And that includes the Ainu, right? So pretty cray. Magatama from the Hamon Street were regular shape lacked and have been called Stone Age Magatama for this reason. Okay. Pretty crazy. Yeah, so I mean, they have to have this magical jewel. They have some ceremonial sites to keep them. I mean, I do gotta wonder about this. In the shogunate, they're supposed to carry on their own Magatamas as well. They, the shogun gangs essentially, they all have to have their own regalia as well. So it's a pretty important thing to have something that's passed down generationally that's magical. Here the Dutch with the Japanese trading in a painting. So they were pretty okay with the Dutch.
Yeah, they seem to be getting along. So, so maybe going forward, so just maybe briefly go back to the dance, just because I want to read the main chorus of this Awa Odori dance, which, may still have happened or maybe from the Tokugawa period.
This one here or a different link?
Yeah, you can just play this as B-roll without the sound. I mean, although the sound is really cool. They sing in this crazy fashion. Can you turn on the sound actually for a second, or?
As on a Mac, I can't, but you might be able to if I let you screen share.
Everyone just check it out. It's worthwhile. Yeah. Anyhow, it's pretty insane in how they dance. I mean, how do they look like to you? Just top of your head. How does this look like to you?
I mean, definitely like they're doing a magical thing more than a dance.
That's already an interesting idea. It means like, I think, Dance of the Wind or something. And what they always sing, and also I had forgotten what it even means, but it's so perfect because I think they look pretty funny in a way. Also, like
who would do this? Why do you have a COVID mask across your nose? Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, who knows what was going on? Who knows?
And also, I really love, for the women, I love like their hats. I don't know what they mean, but I really love them. And then I'm reading to you the English translation of the main chorus that they always sing, and it simply says, "The dancers are fools, the watchers are fools. Both are fools alike. So why not dance?" And I think it's pretty awesome. Whoa. Like in terms of dance culture statement and attitude, it's perfect, I think. And I'm just wondering, like, how can this foolish tradition, let's say, why does this survive and how does this survive? And again, what is this supposed to remind us of? Like, how far back does it go, because that doesn't look like a 9-to-5 attitude or something. Although
Is
they have
there
like,
is there a Japanese equivalent to a clown? Let's see. Standard way. Do they have a thing? I wonder.
I'm just thinking about their makeup in general, like from the geishas up, and they also have various particular forms of theater. But unfortunately, I don't know the name because I don't mean kabuki. I mean something else. But I think there's even some kind of a, if I'm remembering this right, maybe someone in chat knows, some kind of a theater where everybody plays as a woman or something like this. I even attended this, but I forgot about it.
Isn't that
That's the name.
kabuki? Isn't kabuki?
Maybe
Kabuki is the
maybe
one where
like
the dudes dress as girls, like in Shakespeare.
right.
I mean, this isn't a trans investigation episode, but yeah, that's a dude. Kabuki's all about that. I've met a couple kabuki stars. I lived in San Francisco. I mean,
Right.
it is what it. It's cool. I mean, it's not what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
No,
sure.
no. It's cool. So
that was really convincing,
on it,
Raph. Thanks a lot.
so-
No,
I mean,
but
I
like-
like the style. I think it's very.
I'm more of
very-
a no guy. I don't know if you've seen no plays. Have you ever seen no theater? NOH. I'm a no guy. No means no. The Japanese no theater is older than kabuki. Kabuki comes from
That's what I
around the
saw.
16th
I think
century. It's
I saw one live, but I think it was this one. Yeah. Go
Dude,
ahead,
this is like minimalist techno from Belgium. It's crazy. I don't know what they do. Like the deal is you wear a mask that's too small for your face on purpose. You got it, because otherwise people will think maybe it's really you're trying to look like. No, this is punk rock. You're like, yeah, I'm only doing this because we're all the spirit and the human corpse isn't real. It's very goth 17-year-old. But then this guy's playing a little girl right now. So he's going to be like in all old Buddhist monks. They'll play little girls, trees, it doesn't matter. And so he'll be like, I am a little girl. My hair is really pretty. And you're just like, bro, calm down. But they will never like, I'm a little girl. No acting. You're just supposed to be doing the play because it's all freaking material, and material is nonsense. But like, having said that, you want to go to a no play because of the materiality of it. It's so beautiful. This crazy wooden set. It's clearly a magic ritual. It's not just a play. They have to be Buddhist monks. It takes like 30 years to be good enough to do the thing. It's nuts. And yeah, the music is literally just someone banging on a piece of wood. So it's like, boop, boop, I love it.
Obviously a ritual, yeah. Oh, and now Xirtus vanished. Well, I'd love to be able to tell you guys more about it. It's back.
Sorry.
See?
Wrong window.
So
but yeah, Kabuki is really rad, and like it's fun and cute and stuff like that. But the whole culture is very similar to the Shakespearean culture in that sense, because Shakespeare had female characters played by men as well, and it's happening at the same time. So I kind of assume that there's a connection there, whether we want to culturally say everything it's its own thing, but like look at Japan today. Japan is very unique, very original, but a lot of it's inspired by the fact that they're a global audience and they're looking at our stuff and they're like, dude, wouldn't it be funny if Garfield was, a space ninja who looked at his phone all the time? And you're like, wait, that has nothing to do with Garfield. But so they are very creative, but they are definitely basing it on their reaction. Dude, that guy.
So, oh yeah, right. I was trying to send you these pictures. I'd like to look at them, these underground pictures from close to Vienna. At least one of them with the Templar, because there's like a Templar cross underground. I'll show you in a second.
Yeah, maybe you should screen share because it wasn't letting me full screen the window.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I will have any more luck. Okay, let's do it differently. Maybe you just want to go to the next link, which is the Orphan trains, and just briefly, just mention that whole street Arab thing, and I'll try to send you the pictures.
Guys, did you know that they call it, there's another name for foundlings? And I don't want you to say it, but it's street Arab. I didn't know this. Ralph brought this up. God, this
and
is
I
crazy.
didn't know. I think I was doing like the most basic research, because to look up Orphan train in Wikipedia is not the most out of the world thing you could do. And then I was like, maybe I read it from somewhere, or I'm surely I found it somewhere. But then I was like, this is even on the wiki page, and I was like, how could I miss this? And why the F would they call them Arabs? I mean, maybe because they were Arabian, you know.
There's a couple of things here. One, the Children's Aid Society was a Christian aid society, so we're trying to Christianize the Arabs, right? But on another level, it's saying very clearly, these aren't Christian kids, and where did they come from? And yeah, vagrant boys, inexpensive room and board. So building up these, from the foundling trains to the foundling machines, like these factories where they had these kids working. And of course, to call them street Arabs, just out of control, man. Let's look that up a little bit more. Orphan train, street Arabs. Boom, boom, street Arabs. Look at that, street Arabs. Seriously, this is what I mean. It adds insult. It literally adds insult to injury, right? And it's kind of weird because it's not bad to be Arab, but then they added the street Arab thing, and so it kind of gives you an idea of how they thought of Arabs at the time, right? So
and
what
even
are they?
I have to ask again, were they really Arab in terms of where we think of now, or could they be European Arabian?
Yeah.
So we don't even know.
Yeah, Viennese street rats, exactly. Same.
Yeah.
No offense, no, I'm just kidding. But these guys, man, these kids, not Arabs as far as you think, right? But actually, you look at Afghanistan, there's blonde, blue-eyed Arabs as well. So the term has nothing to do with the way they look in terms of their genetics. It's a socioeconomic thing. They're like, oh, these are orphans. They don't have parents. They don't have jobs. We're going to call them street Arabs. I don't know. It's a lot, man.
Yeah. So I think I managed, if you go on the Telegram, to send it to you separately, at least 4 of the images, which just show the concept of what I want to illustrate. And
how do I do this without full screen? Because that was the problem last time at full screen. Oh, I have an idea. What if I full screen the whole thing? Go on. Sharing the slideshow.
So this is a place close to Vienna, where they have like underground tours, and yeah, it's just pretty interesting. This is apparently quite old, underground structure, and you see these wooden structures, and I just want us to take a look at these patternings and whatever people think of it. Of course, it isn't even certain, the way I look at it, whether these wood carvings are as old as the stone itself, or if they have been recently added, just like in the church, you just put an.
Is this working? Can you see the full screen image of the window?
It's working now, yeah. Perfect.
Thank God.
So just proceed a bit. Yeah, no, the people.
Interesting. Well, I was looking at the X-ray on the those images right there. I mean, that's very sigilly right there.
So, and this pattern, like, I mean, obviously, let's just call it a propeller, all right? And
yeah.
So I'm like, what is this?
Did you see the episode I did the other day on the Swazi with Sinjin Vesson?
Maybe, but probably only partially.
So the Spiritual Punks episode, we talked a lot about his work right now and trying to positively recharge the Swazi, remove all the negative energy that's been put into it. And it's interesting because I think that's the most important work right now. Wow, look at that Freemasonic looking part at the top of that beam. The top.
Which part?
So look straight top center of your screen.
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah, right. Just the angles. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a circle inside of the angles that almost gives it like a G, or a circle instead of a G.
Yeah. So we have this, and then there's somewhere also something that first looked different to me, but it's actually a Templar cross carved in the stone. And maybe if you proceed a few more images.
That guy looks cool. I want to hang out with that guy. He seems like he knows stuff. Wow, then this little redhead, South Germany, Southern Germans. All right.
So I think I sent you a new message where there's this image in particular.
This one here?
Yeah, let's see. Now I'm not even seeing it. Okay. Anyhow, there was a Templar cross somewhere as well. And that's also strange because also there is this chapel, I pointed this out before, under Vienna, which is called Virgilkapelle. And there it's also really strange that they also have like this underground church. And the one thing that's still painted there is like the huge Templar cross. I'll write I can send it to you again so we can check it out. This is the name. Virgilkapelle.
Second. Virgilkapelle. So the Virgin Chapel?
Not Virgin, but Virgil. Virgil would be supposedly one of the, famous Roman poets. Here you can see it actually. Yeah. Yeah, so what is this? And of course, I'll mention this again. The joke about this is that they, of course, didn't know this existed, and they were building the metro in the city center, Stephansplatz, and then they stumbled across this. This, along with the Roman excavation at Michaelaplatz, which I talked about before, are just huge red flags for me, because they were both supposedly, only rediscovered due to building the subway, and no one knew that it was there. And I'm always like, I don't care what version of history you tell me, but this is at the very least is a memory loss. In German, you would say Filmriss. So the filming tape has a
I've been to this
or something. Oh, this is even underground. I didn't see this. I don't know about this.
Yeah,
because you can see it from outside.
Michaelaplatz.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
They got this thing you can walk. This is the thing. They don't want anyone going into the stuff until after they control society so much, and then it'll be like the ghettos. Like, oh, did you know humans used to live here? And they'll just like have tours and stuff.
Yeah, but not just that. Even just the fact that they are showing it publicly, because again, no matter what version of history you want to present, without one position where all the knowledge got lost, it's impossible that supposedly people were living here continuously and no one knew you had a Roman settlement buried under. This doesn't work, because Vienna was populated all the time. Unofficial story,
Well, what's beautiful about this is the idea that somehow this was missed during the siege of Vienna, right? Because let's just remind everybody, the siege of Vienna was like ultimate tunnel warfare. They're trying to get underneath the city, and so they built these trenches and tunnels from a mile or two outside of the city. So like up to 5 kilometers, they had these thin tunnels, and then about 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers deep, all the way deep into the city, right? And then they're blowing up tunnels, and people were collapsing, and hundreds of people were dying in these tunnels. There's anthill underneath this thing. The idea that they didn't notice there was a freaking bunch of other tunnels, and I mean, the logical thing here is they're like, hey, we know there are tunnels. We can connect to those tunnels. It'll be easy, right? So this is a obviously hyper known thing, right? Maybe though it's possible in the 16th century because of because of this issue of people using the tunnels to sneak into the city, creating underground, the Muslims, etc., that they made it a state secret. Maybe at that point, Wien was like, we have to hide the tunnels. We need to hide our knowledge of all this for security against other states that would want to take our state for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, but it's also kind of fascinating to me that they display this publicly, and
right.
No one asks the question.
But you're barbarians. You're supposed to not have Roman settlements. Shame on you. Don't you feel bad? You should feel bad.
I don't.
Are
we already barbarians? Aren't the barbarians starting only from Bavaria upward? I don't know.
Barbarian is just anybody who doesn't speak Latin.
I know anybody.
Right?
But
so this proves.
So.
It's like I mean, it is interesting though when you start to look at some of the city sprawls too. It's like this is clearly a thought out thing, and we're just now getting to the point. In America, you had this people built random things, random places. Right. In mid Europe, this started to happen. Now everyone's like, we need to tear down the cities and build these perfectly planned cities with circles. And hey, look at the Tartaria. Wake up and smell the Tartaria, bro. It's all there.
Exactly. So
you saw the Isle of Man flag really quickly, also because we were talking about the.
Oh, please, yeah. I know this flag, but I don't know much about it or what it means.
I mean, dude, you've got the sprockets on the feet. It's definitely a magical symbol. The 3 legs sticking out from one crotch. I mean, I don't know what to do with it, but you think of the Isle of Man. They do like a racing thing there. It's its own nation. I definitely wonder the Triskelion though. Very that ancient Triskelion. That's the thing. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, just last thing. There is some connection between official National Geographic about Viking symbolism and Arabic symbolism in funerals. That's the last thing I sent you. 1 second, I'm putting it here in chat. Yeah, Viking funeral clothes, exactly.
Something went wrong. Check for
Why?
save version. Article. Here, I'll just go to National Geographic and
It's really
search for it.
Yeah, this.
do
Okay,
you
maybe the
search?
link is bad because you had it on the Google actually, but
Oh, I found it there.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, first one. Yeah, yeah.
In a surprising find by Swedish researchers,
Right.
alleged Arabic characters were found woven into the burial costumes found in Viking boat graves, as well as in the chamber graves, clothing of central Viking age sites such as burqa. No, burqa. It's called There's a Viking place called burqa. It's
So
all
you
right.
have to hide yourself.
I'm just gonna breathe. The garments were kept in storage for more than a century, dismissed as being typical Viking age funeral. Could you imagine that? Also, it's just like, oh yeah, no, we already got enough Viking funeral clothing. Just put that in the back. Until a new investigation yielded much more intriguing research or results. One exciting detail in the word is the word Allah, depicted in mirror image. Huh? You mean like Latin? Says the textile archaeologist who made the breakthrough discovery, Annika Larsson of Uppsala University. Larsson's findings have not undergone peer review and have been disputed by some other archaeologists, since word of discovery first emerged late last week. The patterns were woven in silver thread on bands of silk. Larsson says that presumably Viking age burial costumes were influenced by Islam, as well as the idea of an eternal life in paradise after death. Larsson says she studied many silk finds from Central Asian areas. Written sources indicate that some Vikings actually came from those areas. What? She says while Scandinavia was a kind of western outpost of the Silk Road. Okay, yeah, exactly. Like the Rus. In the Quran, it is written that the inhabitants of paradise will wear garments of silk, which, along with the text bands inscriptions, may help explain why the widespread occurrence of silk in Viking age graves. That plus silk is just rad, right? Like if you can get some, it's thin, it's tight, good for the windy airs, it's a blustery Viking day on the coast. All right. So tiny geometric designs on the funeral garments were like nothing she had ever come across in Scandinavia. She believes that these were not actually Viking patterns, but ancient Arabic Kufic script. Unlocking the puzzle of the text meant enlarging the letters and examining them from all angles, including from behind. One of the words that kept recurring was the identified as the name of Ali, the fourth caliph of Islam, as well as the Arabic word of God, Allah. What excites Larsson about the finds is the new lens she can now put on while examining Viking artifacts. Textiles and clothes can tell more about people's intangible values and imaginations than other archaeological finds, she says. Armed with that information, she hopes to contribute new knowledge in a broader perspective. In a press release posted by Uppsala University, Larsson notes that it is often presumed that Eastern objects in Viking graves were a result of plundering, but Larsson believes that the Kufic lettering was perhaps an attempt to write prayers that could be read from left to right. Okay, so first Christian Viking king, I can't remember his name right now. It's like Alfie or something like that. First Viking kings of Shetland, Forkbeard. Basically, you got to imagine you're a Viking, and I believe, by the way, that obviously they had Viking wives, and then they meet people, and you go grab some kids from Denmark and from England and from Ireland and Scotland. Why not grab some kids from Sweden or Turkey or go further east? If you're a Viking, you go places, you grab people and stuff, right? You want to have all the coolest stuff you can have. So the Vikings would have gone and bought silks, asked for stolen silks, thought it was nice, worn it, and you're gonna have a temple to the Christian god with a temple to your local god, because if you've got money and you think that the gods are useful, and this is what a lot of kings did, was they're like, yeah, I'll get a kingdom together and I'll have a pinball machine and a statue to Jesus and a statue to Thor and Woden, and so I think that might be a thing as well, as you've got these collectors and they're collecting gods, and collecting, and they're like, yeah, Arabic, that's sweet. Look at that stuff. Give me some of their regalia, The
only question that I would have is what brought these people to be, let's say, plundering or something. Like, climate change or
Yeah, exactly.
You see what I'm saying? Like, it must be
Oh.
some reasoning as to why they would act like that, and not just
Um,
chill, you know?
the Danish Vikings were like the term in Denmark for Viking. It comes from river pirate, right? And so river pirate is essentially the idea of people that would come up and down the river, rob you in the middle of the night, and then they disappear really fast. And that is a hyper American thing. Actually, the word kraken is where cracker comes from, the white pejorative. Benjamin Franklin. Let's see if I can find this cracker. Ben Franklin. He had come up with the term, and Franklin, in his memoir 1790, referred to a race of runagates and crackers, equally wild and savage as the Indians, who inhabited the deserted woods and mountains. A pejorative for usually Slavs and probably Turks and the middle whites. That's what he would say about them. But you look at someone like Yermak Timoyevich, which was a Cossack, aka a Tartar, and started the Russian conquest of Siberia in the reign of Ivan the Terrible. So river pirates were continued to be important beyond the Viking Age, and so many of the people that were Viking descendants ended up in the United States, became Vikings as well, or river pirates as well. We had river piracy into the 50s. Now we have agencies that protect against river piracy now. So I don't know.
I'd manage river piracy. I'm just thinking about the Port Authority, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you don't want to be like, you don't want to be drinking a beer on a boat, apparently. You could be in the middle of the lake by yourself, and then some dude in a beige shirt's going to show up and be like, hey, you drinking and driving a boat? That's illegal. I mean, like, the freedoms in America are highly exaggerated.
What I was just thinking of more of is the possibilities you get by controlling the Port Authority of, let's say, an American state or city and a South American state or city. And what you could do in terms of import-export businesses that may not be perfectly legal technically, but perfectly possible, and supposedly, apparently in the US, these positions are usually political. So yeah, I won't say anything more about that.
Dude, the Suez Canal is a good example because the French were trying to build the Suez Canal. They failed at building the Suez Canal. They didn't have enough money to do it.
They failed because it was already there, no?
Well, there was an old Suez Canal, but they're not using the one that there was originally. There's one that's like about 2 miles north of it that was clearly you can see where the sand and things have pushed together. But what they built is actually weirder than the original Suez Canal, and you'll see it. What they did is there's a kind of like the pyramids, a block that stops the water and forces the water up. So this whole path is elevated. So you close off the boat, and then the boat rises up with the water, and it sails above sea level on this false canal that they control and own. And it's controlled by the United States government because this French dude who couldn't get it built with the French government, he asked if he could be a translator and a diplomat for the Panamanian state. And then the Panamanian state said, sure. And then the U.S. government showed up as the French were leaving. And they're like, wait, what are you guys doing here? It's like, oh, you guys said that we could come build your port. Like, no, we didn't. Like, oh, yeah, we got this message from Francois, whatever. And they're like, oh, what? The French, he got us. And that's how the Americans took over. Because they had so many big boats, and the Panamanians were like, we're free now. What are these guys doing here? Sucked.
Yeah, so I mean, in relation to all of this, the last question I have is, this is the last link I send you, which is just the flag of the Sassanid Empire, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And I actually, this came to mind when I was looking at these underground pictures, because I was looking at the carvings and I was like, why is there like this Sassanid thing there? But it was actually a Templar cross. And only then I noticed that the Sassanid Empire thing, at least the 4 stripes, pretty much look like an inverse of the Templar cross, like a mirror image, inverted. So yeah, no idea what that means.
Hold on. Yeah, so it kind of does have the the output, and it's at an angle. Also, you can have a cross at an angle or the inverse space.
All right, actually, everyone can see it now if you just look at the purple. Only focus on the purple, then you can see the Templar cross. And here I'm also like, just why? Like, is this a occult deliberate meaning that was put there, or is one supposed to be the inverse of the other? What does this even relate to? Is the Sassanid Empire even real? It's long ago, so it's hard.
The X is the inverse space of the cross. Man, I'm gonna have to
Right,
Talk to my
exactly.
Jungian psychiatrist about that. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, X as the inverse space of the cross. No, but I think
Yeah, it
it
is.
seems kind of relevant. I don't know what it means exactly, but yeah, that's all I
No,
got.
but it's huge. I mean, and that's funny because the yellow looks cute and then the purple looks really like iron crossy. So they can do both at the same time. Soft and rigid. Pretty cray. There was a poet, Sandor Pitofi.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Oh yeah, no, I can't tell you much about it. I just brought him up. If you go on the German page, maybe there is the picture I meant, because I said my mustache was inspired by this guy. He was supposedly, oh there you go, yeah.
This one?
Last on the I want to say dollar bill on the currency, yeah, here,
Oh.
1823, 1849.
Oh, the Pango, yes, the 50 Pango note.
This is of course very interesting because this is one of the national heroes, poets in Hungary. And then, of course, if you look closer at its history, now they're all revered, just like in the US. Oh, I recently heard this about Hamilton, supposedly. Because, of course, there's this musical and everyone is hyping him, I guess.
Good job, Walt Disney.
But I had heard that actually he was not maybe the most, I don't know, freedom-loving guy or something. So there was like this cover stories coming up later on.
Hamilton wanted to push a boot down on the face of America like per minute, like boot stomps per minute. He was industrialist to the max. What he wanted to do was obviously I'm showing a bunch of white people pictures here, but he was partially black and born in Haiti. He wanted to remove inheritance. He wanted the state to take back all inheritance when someone dies, 100% death tax.
Like
and that way, well, then you can own whatever you can get your hands on in your lifetime. And then when you die, it goes back to the state. So the state can try to find the person with the most merit to build the most with it.
Sure.
So yes. It's a lot like communism. But I would go further and say it's a lot more like German fascism from the 30s. Like what he really wanted to do was build a corporatist American state that would have spread across Haiti, all of South America. In fact, the Knights of the Order of the Golden the Knights of the Golden Circle. The Golden Circle, Knights, Golden Circle, are definitely based on Hamiltonian. Ooh, that's right.
But here we even the double. We have the 8-pointed. Almost looks. This looks more like Tartarian / Arabic, and the cross.
Pretty nuts. Yeah. So then they've got the sideways cross and the Knights of the Golden Circle. You know, but they wanted to build a new capital of Atlantis in Cuba. They want Havana to be their capital. So when you start to look into all of the Knights of the Golden Circle stuff with Cuba, George Bush Sr., the Bay of Pigs, the Bush family had a bunch of land in Cuba. You know, the Bay of Pigs is a big deal. So they're trying to take the communism thing to take over Cuba is interesting because it's both the most like the original goal of some of the oligarchical corporatists in America, like the pre-crash of 29 money. They all wanted to build this huge new empire, and it was gonna, they were gonna own slaves, but black people could own slaves too. It would be like Barbados and things like that, and it would all be about money, right? And that was so Hamilton was definitely into, he was a psycho in some way, but also pretty interesting guy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, so I'm just mentioning this because, of course, with these national heroes, you never know, and. Yeah, with Peter Fischander, he's just one of those, and it's just interesting because of.
You ever see the Got Milk commercial for this guy?
No.
There's this dude sitting around, he's eating cookies, and he's like in his house, and he's got a statue of Alexander Hamilton and William Burr. He's got the gun from the duel, because William Burr shot Alexander Hamilton, and he's like sitting at home eating his cookies, and all of a sudden the radio plays, and it's like, and now $1 million prize for whoever can name who shot Alexander Hamilton, and he's like, because he has no milk. So he's like, William Burr. They're like, I'm sorry. We'll have to go to the next caller. It's like, it was William Burr.
Okay,
sorry.
Never saw this. Thank you. I get on the wave. So it's just interesting that you have all these national heroes then propped up, and you can really tell that with the rise of nationalism and the nation state, after they broke up whatever bigger bloc federations they had before, they gave every culture, their heroes that they can revere, they can put on their currency, they can glorify, to also kind of justify that suddenly they speak a language and they don't understand their neighbor anymore, and this artificial creation of new ethnicities, and not ethnicities really, but nationalities, de facto, regrouping the people. Yeah. Who is this? Oh, this is Peter Fischander too. You're muted, Andreas. I'm not sure why.
Sorry, I was just saying the goddess. Looks like this goddess kind of thing set up behind him.
It's Lady Liberty, no?
Yeah.
Or something.
Setting him up for everything he needs. The
So also
gospel,
here,
yeah.
also because everything happened in 1848, all of these revolutions again, also very much seems like a pattern, then it would also make sense, especially if I know that people are not able, like now, to compare notes. I would just use the same pattern, the same iconography, the same symbology, if I know it to be working well enough, I'll use the, beautiful Lady Liberty every time, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I also wonder about this guy because it's like, how many of these characters were actually genuinely probably, maybe not perfect, but decent enough people, and now they kind of own them. It's like Che Guevara T-shirts, and so
yeah, exactly. Like
this
a brand.
guy, yeah, and it's like this guy would have Jesus would have wanted you to pay more taxes. That's kind
of course, or at the very least to protect the established democratic party state system, whatever, which is also rigged against the general population. Who counts the votes, right?
Right.
So,
yeah. Katie Hobbs actually counts the votes. Katie Hobbs is the vote counter. Incidentally, you know about Katie Hobbs, right? Katie Hobbs is she's counting the votes in Arizona, and she's running in Arizona. Against Carrie Lake.
Right.
And wouldn't you know it, even though all the voting machines broke in all of the districts, Katie Hobbs knows it was a fair election. And, wouldn't you know it, she thinks she won. So, yeah. Good for her.
Probably correct, yeah. If she thinks so.
Yeah, why would she lie, Yeah.
Right. So so with these guys, and of course it's like a brand. So just even recently I saw some older or even newer Dave Chappelle even, and he's even explaining it like, they own your name and everything in perpetuity, right? And that's how it's called, is managed. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean the whole thing where he's like, man, they always make black people wear dresses. I'm never gonna do that. Then he goes to Africa, and then he comes back, and they're like, yeah, now you're gonna put on the dress. Like, all right, I got kids, and he puts on the dress, and it's like, wow.
Oh, he really did. Oh
yeah.
boy. Oh boy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As a woman. Is that it right there? I don't know.
Oh no, it's kind of sad.
Bump, 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 bump. Yeah, they got him to do it. They got him to do stuff. He's done some stuff. Here's him on Colbert, right? Doing it or something like that. I don't know. He's definitely been convinced that he had to do what he had to do. And I think a lot of people were. They're like, okay, well, I better stay. I got a family. I got to take care of my family. But it's pretty sad. Yeah.
And just to be clear, not because it's bad to be seen as a woman, but because for whatever reason he didn't want to himself, he was coerced into it. And it's obviously some kind of an occult ritual that some of the control faction get off of if they can, bully you into participating in that. Or it makes me think of the Oddfellows, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting also some of these pictures, like the street gamins in Constantinople. So looking at Turkish street urchins as well. Maybe so. Why did they have the idea that it was a Turkish phenomenon? Because that's what it really sounds like. What they're trying to say, like, why is Constantinople this place of human trafficking at the beginning of the 20th century? I mean,
because parents got killed, and they're evacuating or transplanting the population.
Brutal. I know. Also on your channel, you've got the Iridium. Yeah, we talked about the Iridium Dwarves videos up, but guys, I can't show you on the StreamYard, but the German translation's so freaking good. Wish I had a better way to show you that. I think I could probably do. Check. Do this. This should work. Audio res and then Soundflower on settings audio Soundflower.
Des 5. großen Aussterbens. Und im Wesentlichen war ihre Theorie, dass Iridium nicht von dieser Welt war und einen Asteroiden darstellte. Und ich weiß, dass die Hälfte von euch damit ein Problem haben würde. Aber lassen wir uns versuchen, den Mittelweg dieses Tar-Territoriums zu finden. Alvarez sprach also von der Entdeckung einer apokalyptischen Schicht aus Iridium, die auf dem ganzen Planeten gefunden wurde. Und sie ist überall auf dem Planeten, aber es gibt nur eine Schicht davon. Ich sage es noch einmal, diese Schicht ist das einzige Iridium auf der Erde. Man sieht, ich habe es auf eine Art heruntergespielt, als ich sagte, es sei selten. Tatsächlich ist es viel mehr als selten. Es ist
It
einzigartig.
is more than rare. It is unique.
Diese
Yes.
apokalyptischen Schicht aus Iridium. Great, yeah, this works. Awesome. I'm not sure if I can hear you yet. You still have to.
Are you back?
Yes, here you are. So great, yeah. So yeah, this was fun to translate. Everyone, of course, gladly send this to anyone interested. Also, it seems, I'm now with a tiny channel, but still very much observing the YouTube algorithm and things. It seems people are watching slightly more if it's a shorter video. I mean, understandably so,
Yeah,
not
I'm gonna start
everyone
putting
is-
out some 20 minutes. I think that people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, even just chop. I'm honestly thinking even just chopping up existing things, and just republish. Who's already seen it can just skip it.
Dude,
It
clips.
seems-
Yeah.
It
Gotta put some
seems,
clips out.
and we gotta start some TikTok or something. Supposedly there's already stuff going on. I don't know to what quality, but
I'm pretty excited about Twitter. Twitter just uploaded you have 40
Oh,
gigabyte
yeah, right.
2-hour limits now. 2 hour 40 gigabytes,
Oh,
so you can do a
what?
lot of so I'm gonna start trying to put some stuff on Twitter too. And
nice. That's
yeah.
good. Well, they are the one that needed most, I guess. So
yeah. Pretty legit.
Perfect.
Well,
so yeah,
it-
last random thing I have is this place in Mexico, which I have no clue of, which we can just take a look at, and you can tell me what you think. A
Nice.
friend sent this to me. It looks interesting. No idea.
Hold on a second. Yeah, did you see the Graham Hancock Netflix series yet?
Oh no, not yet. There's a new one. Okay.
Yeah, Apocalypse.
Is he talking about
Ancient
Tartaria
Apocalypse.
or
He's not
recent
there yet.
apocalypse? I want to do
He's-
the show Recent Apocalypse.
Yeah,
Xirtus,
he's
that's your-
not quite there yet. But you know what? I'm gonna see if we can get him. I know he's big now, but he's friends with Eddie, so getting him on Sig Tank would be
Right,
good. I
right,
really want to
perfect.
get Randall Carlson. I love Randall Carlson. I think he's great. So, but yeah, he's like, I think when they obviously I don't believe they were giants, but perhaps they were giant minded. I'm like, okay, I get it. You're trying to make the normies like hear about this.
not freak
So,
out. Yeah.
It's really good that you did this. I mean, a lot of people, I'm hearing a lot, like Lauren Southern posted, she's like, Ancient Apocalypse is actually really good. And I was like, hey, Lauren,
Oh.
what's Tartaria?
Nice. Yes, it's progressing. So maybe I have to skip through somewhere because there's some.
And I love
plays.
Lauren. Yeah, so this is like out of control, like the stonework and everything. And then, oh, yeah. The flat rivers, the stone rivers.
Because I think you can see it from the outside too, where it's pretty impressive. I'm not sure when they're going to show that.
No, oh, you can take a picture. I thought that was no cameras. It's like, this is a secret. I'm like, what? Yeah, okay, so this is normal.
Look at the
This is-
pyramidal mountains. in
This
the
is
background.
completely reasonable. This is what happens.
This
This is natural.
This is what I mean.
Completely
This is
natural.
what I mean. What is
Those were
this?
square
Those
mushrooms.
windows.
So you'll love
Thank you.
the Graham Hancock thing because he does start with like some things that were 20 years ago no one accepted as true, and he's like, now everyone knows that this site in Indonesia is not natural. But up to like 4 years ago, there were still scientists pretending it was. They're like, dude, these are like hand cut cubic stones. No, they're brown people. They couldn't have done it. It's like, what are you doing,
Yeah.
Britain?
If it were already a thing, you would have been banned back then. Like this
God,
shadow
yeah.
banned, So here we go. Yeah, so these windows was just one I wanted to show you, just if you have any idea. I have no clue. Just
These
some
windows?
nice
Where-
things to look up.
Oh, the square.
Yeah, the square mushroom.
Yeah, it's very much on. Yeah, so I mean, interesting because it almost looks like it's sealed up on the other side, like it used to be open or something, or maybe there was something that was supposed to go. But that is interesting. Like, why? What did you want to be there? Is this for sliding blocks into frame for a pyramid to be connected to the mountain wall? I mean, stepping things too. The pyramid of Cholulu. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Check this out. So this is the biggest pyramid complex in the world, right? And this is it. No. Oh yeah, here we go.
What is this architecture? Go back, show it again.
They put a church on top of it. They're like, go back to sleep. Don't worry about it. But they actually like I want to find the clips of it, like from LiDAR or whatever it is. But Graham Hancock on his I think it's second episode goes into the temple with some Mexican archaeologists, and they're like, yeah, actually it's weird because it's built on top of like 6 temples going back 10,000 years that have been that they continually added to and built on top of. And you can see where at one point they just buried the old one and built another one on top of that, and it's just layer after layer. But then most people only are ever going to see like about this much of it because it's all flat from here, right? And then you can't see the pyramid, but it is the biggest complex, right? Pretty crazy.
Did I ever tell you that I was at the Bosnian pyramids?
Oh yeah, you went?
Yeah, so just because it's one of the more famous ones, also, yeah, do you say claims already?
Right, and they pretend it's not real, right? I just had Kevin Soldo on. He's a Croatian Canadian. He went while he was in Croatia, and he was saying, it's like, yeah, I don't know what the hell, because like they make you think it's even possible that this isn't a man-made thing, or they make you think it's possible this is natural. And you go there, you're like, no, there's no way.
Yeah, and what's interesting just is that there is absolutely no government or other big financial support by anyone for this, not even.
Which is smart, because if you become a UNESCO site, then you can't.
Yeah, of course. I think he actually had to buy the plots of land or something. And also how it's organized is interesting, because anyone who goes there, you can sign up, and next day you can join the team and start digging with your hands. They're not really using any tools. And they just keep digging through. And it's interesting because they say, back then I didn't understand what they meant, that they found petrified organs. I mean, it makes me think of Stellium-7.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I can make more sense of it, or that even believe that it could be. They just say they just have a few, and they're not as clear, I think, as the hard stones found by Stellium, but interesting concept. They also found some runic script that has some very strange message. Even some stone that supposedly said something along the lines of, yes, now we have to close off the passage, but eventually this will be rediscovered, which also makes me wonder, because the internal caverns that they're digging out, they were deliberately closed off, obviously, but with a soft material. So what I was also thinking of is this is could even be some kind of a foresight, if it is true that there was someone who said, okay, we have the intention of closing this off, but we want it to be rediscovered, that they would not weld it shut with steel where you need some, high-grade equipment, but actually left it in a state that literally children or just normal humans can start digging out again, And
was that scene in DuckTales where they just stub their toe on the pyramid and then they dig it out and they're like, oh yeah, it's just underneath here. There's the top of it. Yeah.
So until now they didn't reach up to the pyramids. They only have the passageways. But also there, the air has very high quality. They measured the ionic density. Like there's many negative ions. So that's why many people go there for healing and so on, just because it's basically energized air. This is, to me at least, a very scientific concept, let's say, or very measurable concept. Yeah.
Right.
It has, good charge that your body can use. That's why many people go there for healing. It's not expensive to go there. There's also really nice apartments there, and where you can hang out and have the nice pyramids in the back. Really chill area. There's a small city nearby, and yeah, they didn't reach the pyramids yet, but as you can see, it looks pretty square. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, what should I say? And they made some measurements or tried to go on top, and they realized that apparently something akin to concrete was actually poured over it. So there is a layer which like cracks open, it's like a shell, and then there's the real thing below it, which is also, interesting, strange, no idea, but that's what it is, and definitely worthwhile to check out.
I mean, you look at some of this like Jakarta and everything like that, and where's the one in Indonesia like that is the blocks? There's a place that just looks like crazy. Come on. Temple blocks. Ninja temple blocks.
Runes Beat says, saying that's not a pyramid is like saying I don't know what a woman is. Well,
yeah.
Today, everything is possible.
Yeah. You look at the Yogi Karta, is that the one? I guess the names in Indonesian are harder.
And Holly says, for $20, yeet. Totally
Yes.
digging this.
Dude, we love you. We love the yeet. We love the yeet. I can't find it, but so you look at some of these temple mounds, and what's interesting. So I'm in a defense of crazy people that are trying to find out how things should be natural. It's pretty awesome because as we get that data, then we can use that data to see how someone who understood how that data could work with nature technologically. So I'm all for people trying to be critical, skeptical.
Oh, sure.
You know, and the more that we get there, the thing is, we're going to find, there are probably parts of our story that were, simplified and aren't even as interesting as the truth. The truth is probably more of a mixture of both, where because we're looking at today people that are trying to work against nature and seeing all the consequences of it. I'm assuming that's probably where you see real problems, like the volcanic collapse of a power station. But also you'll see there's a lot of people that are learning how, hey, we can glide with the wind. I can see that as being, hey, this is how the temple, we found, for instance, with the Indonesian temple, the stones could have existed in a sense, like the volcanic pressure puts out that kind of material, but then it's cut. So it's both. There's a natural phenomenon. There's a reason why the temple's built on top of a volcano. When you start to look into it, how many temples are built on top of volcanoes or geothermal energy, like the pyramids are built on geysers. There seems to be, so it's useful. It's actually a great thing when skeptics bring questions, debunk things, and bring more information to the table. That's all part of the plan. So
I'm 100% for it. It's only that usually those individuals are not the most open-minded to have an open conversation with someone who really is expert in that.
That is true.
View. And that's, well, there we go. So, but yeah, I'm always happy for skeptics and so on, to provide, because it refines your own theory always, of course,
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
So I'm all for it. It's just obvious there's something going on, and also just
that's a pyramid. Come on, yeah. Do you know what pyramid means, by the way? It doesn't mean triangle.
Fire in the middle, no?
Fire in the middle, pyre, right? Like pyros. Yeah. So fire in the middle. So I mean, the idea that we're thinking of pyramids wrong because we're thinking about triangles when we should be thinking more about geothermal energy inside of a cathedral or some. You know what I mean? We're getting closer to the truth with this.
Yeah, and energized water reservoirs, even just water purification. And I can really believe that they were even, like I said, energizing water with frequency and so on. Or even, this was also James W. Lee, it's now fresh on my mind from KGUP, with the gardens, the gardens in the nice structures, that why not, if they have the perfect geometry, which already Michael Tellinger talks about this, can have some effect if it's big enough and so on, then maybe you have some ley lines or something naturally occurring. And then maybe you even can apply the proper type of voltage and you have like electroculture. So, because he said like, oh, why not grow superfoods? And I was like, oh yeah, it's so true. And now, of course, but now all that's allowed is an English lawn, of course, because you shouldn't be getting any ideas because,
Yeah, in the Beverly Hillbillies, they move because they get oil money. They move to Beverly Hills, and then they start trying to, because they're Okies, they start trying to grow vegetables on their lawn in Beverly Hills, and they point out like all the laws against it and everything. Like, you can't grow food yourself. Yeah, it's like it's been that way for 80 years now. It's kind of messed up. Well, we're 2 hours deep. I got to get ready for the next thing because Matt Baker's coming on from InfoWars later on with Wednesday Ultra. You're welcome to join if you're awake, but I know it's late there, so it is. But yeah, dude. Thank you for being here, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
We love you all. You're so wonderful. Peace and love, everybody. Ciao.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian.